Right, so Keir Starmer's position on ceasefires is that he won't back one, apparently, until the United States back one. And with Joe Biden lining up more aid to Israel on the basis of preserving the US's ability to have a foothold in the Middle East, which is the only real reason the US backs Israel, that's not likely to come anytime soon. It shouldn't be for other world leaders to lead ours, though. That's not leadership, is it? And Starmer is coming for particular attack on that issue, not least from within his own front bench, 13 of whom have now publicly spoken out in favour of a ceasefire at time of writing. Starmer has his loyalists still, though, even on this subject of a ceasefire, and when you consider MP for Hove Peter Kyle is a former aid worker, it makes his input this morning versus Victoria Derbyshire all the more concerning. Right, so no call for a ceasefire is forthcoming from Labour still, as Keir Starmer adamantly refuses to shift his pro-Zionist resolute backing of Israel to pretty much do as they like, despite dissent coming not only from his backbenches, but even his front benchers now as well. He still hasn't sacked anyone at time of writing for that, so he's certainly getting undermined over this right now, and deservedly so, but that could change. Nevertheless, being a Sunday, there were media rounds to be done. Certainly awkward questions to answer, and facing Victoria Derbyshire this week, please do change the name of the show at this point. Laura Kuenssberg, ever coming back, is going to feel like such a letdown now, was Labour's Secretary of State for Science, Innovation and Technology, Peter Kyle. Derbyshire put to him that the Israeli Defence Force have said that civilian deaths in this conflict are inevitable in order to eliminate Hamas. Do you accept that? Now, the answer to any normal person would be no. Why are Israel killing civilians? I thought they were trying to rescue hostages. It's a funny way of trying to do that. How can you get the hostages out alive? To which you ought to have answered your own question. But Kyle, being a Starmerite, tried to weasel his way out of this. He couldn't just say yes or no. But he played a card in his answer that really ought to have implied he knows a damn sight better than what he's actually saying. He came back with, I accept that when there is war, there is civilian casualties. And as someone who was an aid worker, I know what that looks like in practice. And believe me, it's barbaric. It is unfair. And that is why we should work with everything we have got to try and end this conflict and have in our mind that the long-term two-state solution, which is the only way of delivering long-term stability, not just to Israel and the dignity the Palestinian people need, but also to the whole region and the globe as well. What we're seeing now is desperately unstable, it is unwise, and yes, innocent civilians are dying when they should not be. That's not a yes or no answer though, is it, Peter? That's a lot of waffle. But he played that card, the aid worker card. And indeed he was an aid worker for some 10 years. He worked in Eastern Europe during the Balkans War, so he knows what war zones are like. He's seen the atrocity, the loss of life, the injury, the situation as it is on the ground. And not as it comes to us, safe in our homes, all warm and safe and cosy, second or third hand, as it does through the news, with whatever slant any given news outlet might put on that. You would imagine, therefore, he knows the value of a bloody ceasefire. Just keep that in mind as we go on a bit. Victoria Derbyshire continued, though. She put to him, do you accept that more innocent civilians are going to die in pursuit of eliminating Hamas, which is Israel's aim? Kyle returned to that with, for as long as there is war, there will be civilian casualties, and that is desperately, desperately hurtful, and it is desperately sad. But Derbyshire cut him off at this point. She had what she wanted, and she followed up with the obvious but no less relevant question of, well, shouldn't you be calling for a ceasefire? Go on then, Mr. Aid Worker. You know that a ceasefire brings a halt to the killings, or should. You can never guarantee Israel will abide by it, but that wasn't Kyle's response, because it isn't Starmer's position, is it? He came back with, we could de-escalate really quickly if Hamas would just release the hostages. That would be the thing, the single biggest thing that could change the dynamic in the region. Why aren't they? Because they are bound by no international law. Nobody is calling for them to be bound by international law. They seized 200 plus hostages, 2 of which are British citizens, and if they release those hostages now, then that could give us the opportunity for a diplomatic way forward that could protect civilians. That is the sort of thing that could be done. That's the sort of thing we should be working towards, and then we can get back to the table and start thinking about the long-term solutions, because we can't return to the status quo. The status quo got us where we are, and I think Israel would accept that as well. Not once did the word ceasefire cross his lips. Did you notice that? He dodged the question entirely, saying de-escalation is the way, that it is all on Hamas. Now, Hamas took those hostages. They killed a lot of innocent Israelis too. That is condemnable. Absolutely no argument there. Shouldn't be an argument there from anyone. However, Israel have been bombarding Gaza with no real ideas as to where these hostages are. They tell us Hamas hide behind civilian infrastructure. So if you're bombing churches and hospitals and mosques. How can you be sure the hostages aren't there then? Hamas are in tunnels, we're told too. Well, you're bombing them as well. What if the hostages are there too? It's all well and good saying Hamas could return the hostages, but given the Israeli assault on Gaza, how can we even be sure the hostages are even still alive by their hand? Return them, absolutely, I agree. But what if Hamas can't now? Or at least can't return them all? Besides, if we're going to talk about hostages, what about the ones Israel are holding? They're called foreign nationals in our news though, aren't they? And they're in Gaza and they can't get out either. They won't be allowed out. Arguably the best known of these right now are the in-laws to Scottish First Minister Humza Yousaf. If they can't get out, and they obviously want to leave, are they not being held against their will too? Are they not therefore hostages under the strictest term of the word, as the dictionary definition? Are they not also facing death and destruction as a result of the ongoing military action? A ceasefire will end the hostilities now, get people around the table. Now, get negotiators negotiating the release of those Hamas hostages if they are still alive, and obviously Israel can let those foreign nationals go. Kyle knows this, yet he's sycophantically stuck to Starmer's narrative anyway. As a former aid worker, he will know that it is impossible to deliver aid or assistance whilst under bombardment, whilst Israel rains down fire on the areas those hostages may well be being held in. Kyle complains that Hamas are not being held to international law. Well, oddly enough, terrorists don't tend to take a lot of notice of any laws, do they? But equally, Israel is as bad on that score. They're an occupying power, so they are in a violation of international law as well, are they not? They have targeted civilian infrastructure like the Al-Ali Baptist Hospital. They have, whilst I've been writing this, issued a warning that they intend to bomb the Al-Quds Hospital next. They've issued an evacuation order to them. And again, the same problem there exists as there was before. You cannot evacuate so many sick and injured people that fast. And healthcare infrastructure is protected under international law too. So what the hell do Israel think they're doing with sending out this evacuation order in which case? All the denials about hitting that first hospital, remember those? Wasn't so long ago, just the other week. The claims that it was Hamas. And now they just don't seem to care if they're seen to be blatantly violating international law themselves. Because they figure political patsies like Peter Kyle, like his boss Keir Starmer, like Rishi Sunak and Macron, Biden and all the rest, not to mention the media in all these countries, will keep on providing cover and cast a blind eye to it all and dumb us all down. Well, we see you. We're seeing it on social media and we're not putting up with it. We need an urgent, immediate, meaningful ceasefire that isn't getting vetoed or blocked or talked down, and we need politicians with the balls to say it, not cowards like we're seemingly stuck with. Ceasefire now. Say it loudly, folks. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Please like, share and subscribe if you did. More content out daily. Please have your say on this in the comments below and be part of the conversation too. Meanwhile, here's a video recommendation. The attempt the IDF made to absolve themselves of the bombing of that Al-Ali Baptist Hospital, just to prove my point and put into context the threats that they're making to the Al-Quds Hospital now. And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.